I was celebrating my birthday with my family at a restaurant when a waitress quietly placed a folded note on my table. "Don't drink that." My heart froze. Acting on instinct, I swapped my wine glass with my daughter-in-law's. What happened just 5 minutes later changed everything. My name is Celeste Montgomery. I'm 62 years old, and I never imagined my 62nd birthday would be both the day my life was saved and the day I uncovered the depths of family betrayal. It was a Friday night. My son Marcus had taken me to Giovanni's Trattoria, the Italian restaurant I'd always loved in our Atlanta neighborhood. He chose it because he knew it was my favorite, or at least, I believed he did. Across from me sat my daughter-in-law, Allison Whitlock, smiling a smile I'd always thought was just a little forced. I used to chalk it up to nerves or shyness. The restaurant was full of families celebrating. Warm lighting cast a golden glow over the wooden tables, and the smell of garlic and basil hung in the air. Marcus ordered a bottle of California Cabernet Sauvignon for a toast, and for a moment I truly felt content with my small family. "Mom, you look radiant tonight," Marcus said, as he poured wine into our glasses. His eyes shone with affection, and I felt like the luckiest mother in the world. Allison smiled too, though her eyes didn't match the expression, but I was too swept up in the moment to notice. We ordered our favorites. I went with the chicken parmesan, my go-to. Marcus chose spaghetti bolognese, and Allison ordered a Caesar salad, joking about watching her figure. Conversation flowed easily. Marcus talked about his work at the State Farm office downtown. I shared updates from my garden and stories about my senior yoga class at the YMCA. Yet, something felt off. A quiet tension radiated from Allison. Whenever Marcus turned to speak to me, she'd watch him with an unreadable expression, her fingers drumming nervously against the table as she checked her phone repeatedly. When Marcus stood for a toast, glass in hand, his voice grew thick with emotion. "To Mom for being the strongest woman I know, for raising me with love after Dad passed, and teaching me what resilience truly means." His words brought tears to my eyes. Allison raised her glass too, though her hands trembled slightly. "To Celeste," she said, her voice strained, adding such a special mother-in-law. The hesitation before special caught my attention, but I let it go. I lifted my glass to drink, then felt someone approach. A young waitress with brown hair pulled back in a ponytail, subtly leaned in, as if to tidy the table, and slid a folded note beside my plate. Neither Marcus nor Allison noticed. The waitress, Jida Reynolds, gave me an intense, urgent look before quickly walking away. My heart pounded. Beneath the table, I opened the note with trembling hands. The handwriting was rushed but clear. "Don't drink that. Your life is in danger. Trust me." The world seemed to stop. The restaurant's noise faded to a distant hum. At first, I thought it was a cruel prank, but the look in the waitress's eyes was deadly serious. I stared at my wine glass, suddenly sinister. I forced myself to appear calm while my mind raced. Marcus and Allison continued chatting, oblivious. "I need to run to the restroom," I said, hoping my voice sounded steady. In the restroom, I read the note again. It was just as terrifying as the first time. No name, no explanation. Just that chilling warning. When I returned to the table, I looked at Marcus and Allison with fresh eyes. Marcus was his usual self, chatting about home renovations, but Allison's eyes darted nervously between my glass and my face, as if waiting for something. That's when I made my decision. When Marcus turned to call for more bread, I seized the moment. Casually, I switched my wine glass with Allison's. Both glasses looked identical, just Cabernet. I raised my glass. A toast to this beautiful family moment. Marcus smiled and lifted his. Allison raised hers too, unaware of the switch. We drank together. The wine tasted the same, but I could barely focus. I was watching Allison. At first, nothing happened. We continued eating and talking. Marcus mentioned a potential promotion. I shared plans to visit my sister in Portland that fall. Allison joined in but grew increasingly uneasy. Exactly 5 minutes after the toast, it began. Allison pressed her hand to her stomach, looking confused. I feel a little strange, she muttered. Marcus turned to her in concern. She tried to brush it off, blaming lunch, but her face paled and her hands began to tremble uncontrollably. I really don't feel well, she whispered. Sweat formed on her forehead despite the cool room. Marcus jumped up, holding her shoulders. Honey, what is it? I sat frozen, horrified. Allison tried to stand, but collapsed back into her chair, her breathing erratic, her skin taking on a grayish tint. Call 911, I said sharply, my voice unnervingly calm. The restaurant fell into panic as diners realized something was wrong. The note echoed in my mind, your life is in danger. Now I knew, with icy certainty, that it had been meant for me. The ambulance ride to St. Jude Medical Center was a blur. Allison lost consciousness, while paramedics worked frantically. Marcus held my hand, his eyes filled with confusion and fear. I clutched the waitress's note like evidence I wasn't imagining things. In the ER, doctors whisked Allison away. Marcus and I were left in uncomfortable plastic chairs under harsh fluorescent lights, the smell of disinfectant making me nauseous. I don't understand, Marcus said, for the 5th time. She was fine an hour ago. Maybe it's food poisoning. I didn't answer. Deep down, I already knew. After what felt like hours, a young doctor approached with a serious expression. Are you family of Allison Whitlock? He asked. I'm her husband, Marcus said quickly. This is my mother. How is she? The doctor sat down. A sign the news was grim. Your wife is stable for now, but we need to discuss what caused her collapse. Blood work shows extremely high levels of digoxin. Marcus frowned. What's that? A heart medication, the doctor explained. In normal doses, it regulates heart rhythm, but the amount in her system is potentially lethal. I felt like I'd been punched. Are you saying someone poisoned her? I can't make that determination, the doctor replied carefully. But this amount did not enter her system accidentally. We'll need to contact the police. Marcus began pacing. No one would want to hurt Allison. Who would do something like that? I already knew, but couldn't say it yet. Doctor, I asked, is it possible to put this medication in a drink? Definitely. It dissolves in liquids. Combined with alcohol, its effects intensify. That confirmed it. With trembling hands, I showed Marcus the note. His face drained as he read it. Mom? Where did you get this? I told him everything. The waitress, the message, the switch. Marcus's color faded with each detail. Are you saying someone tried to poison you? That's exactly what I'm saying, I replied firmly, though I was shaking inside. The doctor nodded gravely. We'll notify police immediately and run blood tests on you both. When the doctor left, Marcus and I sat in silence. His mind was clearly racing. Marcus, I said softly, think carefully. Have you noticed anything strange about Allison's behavior lately? He hesitated, then whispered. A few months ago she started worrying about your health. She said you seemed confused, that maybe we should consider care options. My blood ran cold. Care options? A nursing home? She said she'd researched some nice places. She claimed it would be better for you to have professional care. I'm not confused, I said, trembling. I'm perfectly fine. I know, Marcus whispered. But she was convincing. She showed me articles about early dementia. She said we should get power of attorney over your finances, just in case. I thought it was responsible. I felt sick. The picture was clear. Allison hadn't just planned to poison me. She'd been laying groundwork to make my death look natural and inevitable. Anything else? I asked. Marcus looked down. 3 weeks ago, I found bottles of pills in her purse. She said they were vitamins, but I never saw her take them. They were small white pills in different bottles. Just then a nurse approached. Mrs. Montgomery, the police are here, and the doctor has new information. We followed her to a private room, where 2 detectives and the doctor waited. We've done more detailed analyses, the doctor began. Mrs. Whitlock didn't just have digoxin in her system. She had traces of other heart medications, likely ingested over a prolonged period. My world spun. Are you saying someone has been gradually poisoning me? That's our most likely explanation, he confirmed. Detective Lieutenant Lee, a sharp-eyed woman with graying hair, leaned forward. Mrs. Montgomery, have you noticed any unusual symptoms? I thought back over months of dizziness, fatigue, and moments of confusion I'd dismissed as aging. Yes, I whispered. I thought it was just getting older. Marcus squeezed my hand. Mom, why didn't you tell me? Because Allison assured me it was normal for my age. The words hung heavy in the room. That was when I fully realized my daughter-in-law had been trying to kill me slowly while convincing my son I was losing my mind. The days that followed were a blur. Allison lay in the ICU, stable but unconscious. Marcus barely left my side, guilt etched into his face. Detective Lee visited repeatedly, piecing together the nightmare. Mrs. Montgomery, she said one afternoon, we've been looking into your daughter-in-law's background. What we found is troubling. We sat in my living room, the same room where Allison had so often pretended to care for me. Now it felt poisoned by her lies. Allison worked as a certified nursing assistant for 5 years before marrying your son, Lee continued. She had access to medications and knew exactly how they worked. Marcus looked broken. But why would she hurt Mom? I never sensed she had a problem with her. The detective exchanged a glance with me. Mr. Montgomery, we've reviewed your mother's financial records. You're the sole beneficiary of her will. Your wife knew about the inheritance and had been pressuring you to have your mother change legal documents. I remembered how Allison had encouraged me to get my affairs in order and insisted on attending my doctor visits with that voice full of false compassion. There's more, Lee added. We found correspondence on Allison's computer. She'd been researching assisted living facilities for dementia patients. Very expensive, places where residents rarely receive visits. My stomach churned. She was planning to institutionalize me? That's how it appears, Lee confirmed. She also searched for ways to accelerate cognitive decline in the elderly and how to make a death appear natural in cardiac patients. Marcus turned to the window, shoulders trembling. My God, what kind of monster is she? I began recalling incidents that once seemed trivial but now were sinister. I told Lee how Allison had often brought me tea or snacks, after which I'd feel weak or disoriented. She'd then question my memory in front of Marcus. Celeste, you already told me that story, or you just asked me that 5 minutes ago, making me doubt myself. Marcus turned from the window, horror on his face. And I believed her. Every time she told me you'd had an episode, I thought she was helping you. She manipulated me too, I said quietly. Lee took notes. Do you recall a specific incident? Yes. 2 months ago, she brought homemade soup for lunch. After eating it, I felt so ill I had to lie down. That night, she told Marcus I didn't remember having lunch at all, but I did remember. I just felt too sick to defend myself. The doctor said it was a stomach virus. Marcus buried his face in his hands. She was gradually poisoning you, and I helped her convince you you were losing your mind. It's not your fault, I said, though inside the pain was sharp. She's a skilled manipulator. Lee closed her notebook. Mrs. Montgomery, there's one more thing you should know. The waitress who gave you the note, Jada Reynolds, is a nursing student. Her grandmother died 2 years ago under circumstances similar to what you're describing. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? Her grandmother, Eleanor Washington, began showing signs of confusion. The family thought it was natural dementia. She was admitted to an assisted living facility and died 6 months later from heart failure. But Jada had always felt something was wrong. How did that connect to me? The person who had cared for Jada's grandmother and convinced the family she needed institutional care was Allison Whitlock, then using her maiden name, Allison Peters. The room fell silent. Marcus slowly lifted his head, horror dawning on his face. Are you saying my wife, she did this before? That's what we're investigating, the detective confirmed. Jada had recognized Allison at the restaurant. She'd been following her quietly for weeks, trying to confirm her suspicions. Seeing what looked like a family moment, she decided to act. I thought of that young waitress who saved my life, a stranger who showed more concern for me than my own daughter-in-law ever did. "Where is Jada now?" I asked. "I want to thank her." "She's cooperating fully," the detective replied. "She'd like to speak with you too." Marcus's voice broke. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I ever doubted you. I'm sorry I let her do this to you." I took his cold, trembling hands. "Marcus," I said, "Allison is an expert manipulator. This is not your fault." "But I should have seen the signs," he insisted. "How could I have known?" I told him the obvious. Allison had presented herself as the perfect, concerned daughter-in-law. Anyone would have believed her. Detective Lee stood. "Mrs. Montgomery, we'll need you at the Atlanta Police Precinct tomorrow to give a formal statement, and if you're willing, we'd like you to speak with Jada Reynolds." "Of course," I said. "I'll do whatever is necessary." After she left, Marcus and I sat in a heavy silence, absorbing the revelations. I finally spoke. "Marcus, when I felt confused and sick all these months, the worst part wasn't the physical discomfort. It was believing I was letting you down, that I was becoming a burden." His eyes filled with tears. "You were never a burden, Mom. Never," he explained, that Allison had pressed his deepest fear, that he would lose me the way he'd lost his father. My ex-husband had died of Alzheimer's when Marcus was 25. We'd watched a brilliant man fade away. Allison used that pain against us. She knew Marcus would dread the same fate for me, and she exploited it. Marcus admitted he'd fallen into the trap. He'd been so afraid of losing me that he accepted Allison's assertions without question. "When did she first mention my confusion?" I asked. He thought a moment. "It was shortly after Grandma Margaret's death and the inheritance she left me. My mother had passed 8 months earlier, leaving me a considerable sum. I'd planned for Marcus. That inheritance, I realized, had been the catalyst for Allison's scheme. She knew about the money. She knew everything." Marcus confirmed it bitterly. "She'd known about the will, Grandma's inheritance, his fears about my health, and she'd used every detail to build her plan." That night I lay awake, replaying how close I'd come to losing everything. My life, my independence, my dignity, and my relationship with my son. Allison had been poised to take it all. She'd underestimated one thing, though: the determination of a compassionate stranger who refused to stay silent. When I met Jada at a coffee shop near the police precinct, I saw that determination firsthand. Petite and about 23, she carried a steadiness born of pain. "Mrs. Montgomery," she said, "I've been waiting for this moment for 2 years." I took her hands. "I have no words. You saved my life." She blinked back tears. "I wish I could have saved my grandmother, too." Over the next hour, Jada told the story of her grandmother, Eleanor Washington. It was chillingly similar to what had happened to me. Eleanor had been independent, gardening, cooking, handling her finances at 78. She'd met Allison after a supermarket fall. Allison, claiming to be a CNA, offered help and then began to visit regularly, bringing food and doing small favors. The family was grateful. Jada was in college, and her parents worked long hours. Allison looked like an answer to their prayers. 2 months in, Allison began pointing out small incidents of confusion. Leaving the stove on, repeating stories, subtle at first but worrying. Allison fed the family articles about dementia and slowly convinced them Grandma was deteriorating. They began to notice signs they hadn't previously seen: fatigue, occasional lapses, and eventually accepted that professional care might be necessary. The worst part, Jada said, was that her grandmother began to doubt herself. "Jada," Eleanor would whisper, "maybe Allison's right." That was the manipulation at work. Allison then proposed a high-end assisted living facility, Serenity Pines, promising specialized care. The family hesitated, but Allison was persistent and framed it as the selfless, responsible choice. Grandma stayed there 6 months before reportedly dying of heart failure. Jada visited and noticed something off. Allison visited often and brought special vitamins the doctor supposedly prescribed. When Jada later asked about the medications, she was told medical records were confidential, but the pattern and timing felt wrong. A previously healthy heart failing in months. Jada began to investigate. She discovered Allison had worked at the residence before taking the CNA job and found other similar cases. Elders admitted after sudden cognitive declines, who then died of cardiac issues shortly after. Jada tried to warn authorities but had no hard proof. Administrators cited routine complications in dementia patients. The police dismissed a grieving college student's suspicions. She didn't give up. She followed Allison for weeks to collect evidence. When she saw Allison with me at the restaurant and noticed how she looked at my glass, she knew she had to act. She'd been watching closely and saw Allison slip something into my glass when Marcus and I were distracted. Jada had to choose: stay silent and risk another death, or act without solid proof. She acted. "That terrifies me," she said, folding her hands. "How many others like my grandmother, and like you, has she hurt? How many families suffered because one woman decided she could gain money and control by manipulating vulnerable elders?" That afternoon, Marcus picked me up after my meeting with Jada. On the drive home, I laid out what I'd learned. "Marcus, be honest with me. Did Allison ever talk about my will or financial planning?" He tensed. "Yes," he admitted. 3 months earlier, she'd frequently raised the topic, insisting my affairs be in order, given my supposed decline. "What did she suggest?" I asked. He explained she'd encouraged him to get power of attorney over my finances, and even suggested putting the house title in his name to avoid future complications. At first he resisted, but Allison was insistent, saying it was the responsible thing to do. "Did I sign any documents recently without fully remembering it?" I asked. His silence answered. After a pause he confessed. 2 weeks earlier, Allison claimed I'd had a bad episode and needed help organizing papers. She'd presented documents, supposedly recommended by my lawyer, and I'd agreed to sign them. They were a limited power of attorney and an addition to my will that would put immediate control of my assets into Marcus's hands if I were declared mentally incompetent. The realization hit like a blow. I never asked for those documents. I never spoke to my lawyer about them. Allison had drugged me to make me appear confused and coerced me into signing things I would never have signed in my right mind. Marcus pulled into a mall parking lot and covered his face. "I was a complete idiot," he whispered. "I should have questioned everything." I stopped him. "Don't blame yourself. She'd been preparing this for months, conditioning you to believe I was sick." "What will we do about the documents?" he asked. "We'll go to my lawyer tomorrow and void everything," I said. "I'll explain how these were signed and make sure Allison never gets a dime." That night, as Marcus called his lawyer, I reviewed my papers. The scope of Allison's plan was terrifying. With those coerced documents, she would have had virtual control of my estate. If she'd succeeded in having me institutionalized as a dementia patient, she could isolate and sedate me, manage my finances, and ultimately accelerate my death when I no longer served her purpose, just as she had with Jada's grandmother. It was a calculated plan, murder refined into a routine, but she'd misjudged the resolve of a young woman who refused to forget her grandmother. Allison woke from the coma 4 days after drinking the poison intended for me. When Detective Lee called, I felt relief mixed with dread. Relieved she hadn't died, but anxious because her awakening meant a direct confrontation was possible. "How is she?" I asked. "Physically, she's recovering," Lee said. "Mentally, she's agitated. She keeps asking for her husband, and disturbingly, she's asking specifically to see you." My stomach flipped. "Do I have to meet her?" "You're not obligated," Lee said, "but it may help the case. Suspects sometimes reveal information when confronted by victims. I understand if you're uncomfortable." I thought about hiding, letting police and lawyers handle it, but a stronger part of me wanted to face her, to tell her she had failed. "I'll do it," I said, "but I want Marcus with me." "Tomorrow afternoon," Lee arranged. That evening Marcus and I sat together, mentally preparing. He'd been fiercely protective since the truth came out. "You don't have to do this," he said. "We can let the system handle it." "No," I replied more firmly than I felt. "I need to see her. I need to understand how I missed this." He tried to soothe me. "You weren't blind. She's a manipulator. I admitted part of me hadn't wanted to see the signs. I wanted to believe I finally had someone who cared. Allison had abused that longing. The next day, walking through hospital corridors smelling of disinfectant, I felt like I was heading into judgment. Detective Lee led us to Allison's room, which had an officer at the door. When the detective opened it, Allison looked smaller, pale, thin, IV tubes attached, but her eyes still held that calculating focus. At the sight of me, she shifted into feigned vulnerability. "Celeste," she crooned weakly, reaching toward me. "Thank God you're okay. I was so worried." I stayed close to the door. Marcus stood between us. "Allison," I said, steady. "We know what you did." Her confusion looked convincing at first. "What are you talking about? I'm the one who got sick. Someone tried to poison both of us." "No," I said. "Someone tried to poison me. That someone is you." For a moment, a darker flash crossed her face before she masked it with contrived tears. "Celeste, I don't understand why you'd accuse me. I love you like a mother. I'd never hurt you." I asked where that left Jada's grandmother, Eleanor Washington. Her expression changed instantly. The pretense dropped, and the real Allison appeared, cold, calculating, furious. "I don't know who you mean," she replied, voice stripped of warmth. Marcus stepped forward. "Allison, we found medications at our house. We found your correspondence. We know about the money, the documents you made, Mom's sign. We know everything." Allison straightened, her mask slipping as indignation replaced innocence. "Marcus," she said, "you have to understand, everything I did was for us, for our future." "Our future?" he repeated in disbelief. "Your mother is older. She won't be around forever. Wouldn't it be better if she were in a place getting proper care while we built a life together without the burden of worrying about her?" The cold practicality of how she spoke about me like a problem or expense made me sick. "And the money?" Marcus asked. "Was this about money?" Allison sighed as if explaining a simple fact. "Money matters, Marcus. Your mother won't live forever. When she's gone, why shouldn't we be comfortable?" The casual cruelty of her words turned my blood cold. "Are you talking about killing me?" I asked, voice trembling but steady. For the first time, Allison looked at me with raw hatred. "I'm talking about being practical about an inevitable situation," she said. Her smile turned cruel. Eleanor Washington was an old, lonely woman who was going to die anyway. At least I made sure her final months were comfortable, and that her money went to her family. She had almost no visitors. I was the only one who truly cared for her in the end. Marcus shook with rage. "How many others have you hurt, Allison?" "I haven't hurt anyone," she replied, cold. "I provided a peaceful transition for people already suffering." "A peaceful transition?" I repeated. "You call slowly poisoning older people until they die a peaceful transition?" "I kept them comfortable," she insisted. "No pain, no fear, more than most get at the end of life." Detective Lee, who had been taking notes quietly, finally spoke. "Mrs. Whitlock, are you admitting you intentionally caused Eleanor Washington's death and planned to do the same to Celeste Montgomery?" Allison's attempt to backtrack came too late. "No, I wasn't talking hypothetically. I'm confused from medication," she stammered. But the damage was done. She had shown her true self. I stepped closer to the bed, keeping out of reach. "For months, you made me doubt my own mind. You made me feel like a burden, like I was losing my value, but I survived. I'll make sure you never get the chance to do this to anyone else." Her eyes filled with fury. "Stupid old woman," she hissed. "You should be grateful. I was giving you a dignified death. Now you'll rot slowly in some cheap facility where no one cares." Marcus moved forward, but I put a hand on his arm to stop him. "She's not worth it," I said. "She can't hurt us anymore." Leaving her room felt like confronting the demon living in my life for months, terrifying and oddly freeing. "How do you feel?" Marcus asked in the corridor. "Like I woke from a very long nightmare," I replied, "and like I can finally begin to heal." That night, Detective Lee called. Allison had confessed in exchange for a plea deal. She admitted the attempted murder of me and the deaths of Eleanor Washington and two other elderly women over the last 3 years. 3 more? I asked, horrified. Once she began, Allison seemed almost relieved to unburden herself. With confessions and evidence, she would likely face life without parole. Hanging up, I felt no triumph, only deep sadness for the lives she destroyed and relief that the terror was over. I also knew the hardest part of healing was just beginning. 6 months after that night at Giovanni's Trattoria, I wake each day with a feeling I'd forgotten: peace. After months of fear and doubting my memory, my routine has changed. I don't obsess about whether I locked the door or turned off the stove. I trust my mind now. The confusion and forgetfulness were caused by poison, not illness. Marcus visits every Sunday. Our relationship has changed. The guilt he carried for doubting me was heavy, but through family therapy we rebuilt trust slowly. Part of me always suspected something was wrong, he told our therapist, but it was easier to believe Mom was deteriorating than to accept that my wife was a killer. If Mom was sick, I could be the hero. If Allison lied, that meant I'd chosen poorly. I'd brought danger into my mother's life. Admitting that was painful, but honest, and it allowed real healing to begin. Allison's trial lasted 3 weeks. I testified for 2 days, telling my story to a jury that listened with horror and compassion. Jada Reynolds also testified, bravely recounting her grandmother's death and her pursuit of justice. Allison tried an insanity defense, claiming a personality disorder left her unable to control her actions. The prosecution countered with years of planning, internet searches on poisons and murder methods, falsified documents, and deliberate financial manipulation. The jury found her guilty on all counts. I expected satisfaction. Instead, I felt emptiness. A woman I once called family would spend the rest of her life in prison. Justice was done, but a deep sadness remained for the lives she might have lived if she'd chosen differently. After the trial, I made changes. First, I moved. I couldn't stay in the house where Allison had come so often to harm me. Every corner held memories. I needed a fresh start. I found a small home near Lake Lanier, with a yard where I spent hours in the soil. Planting and nurturing life became deeply healing, creating life after almost losing it. Jada has become a meaningful part of my life. We meet for coffee often. Our friendship goes well beyond how we met. She's finishing her nursing degree, and I've been helping her with tuition as a way to honor Eleanor's memory and thank Jada for saving me. Miss Montgomery, she told me recently, I want to specialize in geriatric care. I want to help older adults keep dignity and independence. I asked what inspired her. She answered simply, you. Watching you fight to get your life back showed me elders are not helpless. They're warriors. Her words warmed me. Knowing my experience inspired something positive helped give purpose to the pain. I've begun speaking publicly about elder abuse, not for attention, but to educate families on warning signs. People come to me after talks, saying they recognize patterns: a daughter-in-law pressuring a parent to give access to accounts, a caregiver whose visits are followed by episodes of confusion. I can't save everyone, but if my story prevents one case, it's worth it. Marcus has started dating again. Sarah, whom he met at a support group. I worried at first, but Sarah is kind, honest, and respects the boundaries we set. Mom, Marcus told me, I'll never let anyone hurt you again. I've learned to spot manipulation, and I'll always believe you. I told him I didn't need him to protect me from everything, only to trust my judgment. I'm stronger than any of us thought. Surviving Allison's betrayal taught me things I didn't know about myself. At 62, I feel like a new life is beginning. I returned to yoga, joined a book club, took painting classes, small victories reclaiming joy. Each new activity, friendship, and unafraid morning is triumph over what Allison tried to steal. She wanted me helpless, confused, and erased. She failed. One afternoon while gardening, I found a letter in my mailbox with no return address. I recognized Allison's handwriting. For a moment, I almost threw it away, but curiosity won. The letter was brief and self-centered. No apology, just complaints about prison and a final line that made me laugh. I hope you appreciate the favor I tried to do you. Even after confessing to multiple murders, she cast herself as the heroine. That was a final reminder of why cutting contact had been right. That night I burned the letter in my fireplace. Watching the words turn to ash felt symbolic. The last bit of her power over me gone. This morning, sipping coffee on my porch, watching the sun rise over Lake Lanier, I think of what I lost and what I gained. I lost innocence about human cruelty and the belief that good will always be rewarded, but I gained certainty in my own strength, the wisdom of surviving the unthinkable, a deeper relationship with my son, and the knowledge that my story helps protect others. Marcus is coming for Sunday lunch. We'll cook together like we used to. Traditions reclaimed alongside all the other things I feared lost. As I wait, I remember those who weren't as lucky. Eleanor Washington and Allison's other victims never had a chance to rebuild. Their memory lives in the work Jada and I do to prevent elder abuse. At 62, I've learned life can change in an instant, into a nightmare or into something unexpectedly beautiful. The key is to keep fighting, even when hope feels gone. I am Celeste Montgomery. I survived an attempted murder by my own family. I share my story not as a victim, but as a warrior who refused to be silenced. Every morning I wake free, healthy and in control of my life. That is my sweetest revenge against those who tried to destroy me. Did you like my story? Which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you enjoyed this, you can support by sending a super thanks so I can keep sharing more true life stories. Thank you for your support. I look forward to your comments. On screen are 2 more life stories I recommend. There's more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With respect and gratitude.